This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, series premiere tonight on NBC.
HR tech, work tech, and investment are transforming the future of work. Are you in the know? Welcome to the Work Tech Podcast. Join host George LaRocque for expert insights on the trends, M&A activity, and strategies shaping the workplace. Brought to you by OneWorkTech.com and the Work Defined Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome back to Work Tech. It's me, George LaRocque, and this episode is about an incredibly important topic. A lot of conversation around the market right now about AI, but we're not just going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about AI and bias. Employers everywhere are implementing more and more AI across their entire tech stack, but specifically in hiring and HR processes. And can AI help reduce bias, or will it increase the inherent bias that we're working to try to avoid? My friend and industry icon, Torin Ellis, is going to educate us all on how to approach this. He just put out a new report, Reducing Bias in HR Using Artificial Intelligence. Welcome, Torin.
Hey, I appreciate you. And I will tell you, it's early enough in the month of January that we could still do those Christmas and holiday candy canes. Like I literally just had one right before I got on with you. So we could do this thing in a savory flavor of sweetness today, man. Let's have fun.
All right. Yeah, I say Happy New Year, by the way. I've been getting on calls with people and they say, I can't say Happy New Year. And I'm like, give me the Happy New Year. Like, it's January. Well, we haven't seen each other. Happy New Year, Torin.
Yeah, I absolutely haven't heard that one, but I will say Happy New Year to you. I'm ready for, all of the promise that 2025 has in store for me. And so I'm rooting for people like you and so many others that we do have an incredible Q1 and a remaining rest of the year.
Yeah, same. Back at you. And I hope that wish covers everybody. I hope we all have a great year. So I really want to get into this report, but before we do that, just in case the one person that doesn't know who you are in this market is out there, let's start with a quick introduction of you and the Torin Ellis brand so people know where you're coming from.
A sincere thank you again for inviting me to have conversation. Torin Ellis, diversity strategist, risk mitigator. I do all things focused on humanity. That stakeholder is extremely important to me. So we consult, we speak. I've invested and soon to be a founder of a manager intelligence platform that continues to evolve how I show up in the world of talent acquisition and human resources.
Oh, that's exciting news. That's great. So you've got a platform coming out. I could get distracted and dig in there for 30 minutes, but let's have you back and we'll talk about it when you release it. But I'm excited for you that you're awesome. Putting that knowledge into a platform. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
All right. So I've read the report, but I think what the first question I have is really about the backstory. So I'm familiar with your consulting and your speaking on everything DEI, and I always learn when I talk to you, when I hear you speak. What inspired the report, and what brought this into being?
So much happening right now. It's like a tornado of activity that is happening in the diversity and inclusion space. And for those of you out there that are very familiar, I'll say D&I or D&I just for short. I'm not trying to leave anybody out. But I have to bookend the way that we decided to approach this topic. I knew that the frenetic pace of AI was going to escalate in terms of conversation, but I didn't really hear people discussing bias. And if in fact they did discuss it, George, it was from a negative position. And so, one, I decided that we would take a positive position that doesn't diminish or erase or discount, devalue the ethical concerns, the fact that there are a lot of issues with AI that's in the marketplace. But I wanted to take a positive approach because I wanted to invite people in rather than have them continue to sit on the sideline. When I say I bookended, in April or so of 2019, there was a report that came out, Discriminating Systems by the AI Now Institute. That was in 2019. And so I said, 5 years, let's see how we have grown, if you will, in terms of how we've developed some of these technical solutions. Let's see if we can kind of look back a couple of years, look at what current state is, and then maybe position people to have some sort of a vision about how we move forward in 2025 and beyond.
Yep. Yep. That's interesting. And how do we do when thinking about the progress the last 5 years or so? Do you feel like that report is still valid, or do you think there's been enough progress to put a new flag in the ground?
So I think it's 6 in one hand and 6 in the other, as they would say. I certainly feel like we've made progress. It would be disingenuous of me to discount all that we have. But I just don't think that enough of us are playing in the field across the board in terms of how we are designing systems, developing technologies, bringing ideas to fruition. I don't feel like there's enough of us evaluating these systems, being discriminate in how these systems are showing up in our workplaces. So I feel like there's so much room for us. But the point is, we have absolutely made progress. And again, that's the reason why we took a positive approach, because we want more people to participate, to be curious, to explore solutions, understand how they could sit inside of their organization and bring efficiency and efficacy, rather than it being something that, we're still wrestling with trepidation. I don't want us wrestling with trepidation. I do want us wrestling with growth and advancement, if you will.
Yeah. So before I go too far, we're talking about this report. Where can folks get access to the report that we're talking about? Where is it available?
Yeah, they could absolutely go to the Plum website. That's Plum, Plum, as in Mary.io, plum.io. And they've actually put a small little graphic on the homepage directing people to the report. And we'll also make sure we include a QR code in this particular show note.
Perfect. All right. So when I look at a report, because I've done a few reports, do a lot of research, first thing I look at is, let's see, who did we talk to? Where is this information coming from? And I applaud you. You've got a good sample size. You had like over 400 director and above HR leaders, C-suite leaders. You had a really nice cross-section of market segments. So I felt like the data that you provided was giving me a real view to where the market is across the board. But my first, I'm always curious, because you went into this, you're the expert. What stood out? Were there a few big things that really jumped out at you as you synthesized your work?
Yeah, the first thing that stood out was the number of organizations that are still sitting on the sideline saying that we're not sure if AI can help reduce bias. In fact, we actually have reservation as to, or let me say it differently. We actually hold a position that we think AI might continue to perpetuate and push bias into our systems. And so That really stood out for me. And again, not because it was some complete surprise, but in some ways, George, what it did was it validated some of the concern from the AI Now Institute's Discriminating Systems of AI report that I mentioned from 2019. So it was amazing to me in some ways that organizations, individuals are still challenged with whether or not we've done a great job, no matter how frenetic the pace is in terms of our talking about it, no matter how much we read about VC investing dollar after dollar after dollar.
I want to take a break real quick just to let you know about a new show we've just added to the network. Up Next at Work, hosted by Gene and Kata Keel of the Devon Group. Fantastic show. If you're looking for something that pushes the norm, pushes the boundaries, has some really spirited conversations, Google Up Next at Work, Gene and Kata Keel from the Devon Group.
There are still a number of individuals that are cautiously observing what is really taking place. That's one of the things that stood out for me. The other thing that stood out for me in the report was on the other side, and that's in the organizations. And you mentioned it. We had small businesses, mid-sized organizations, as well as enterprise companies. I think it was somewhere around 32% of our respondents were coming from enterprise organizations. The other side of that were organizations that have made the decision to embed AI solutions are seeing all types of efficiency and efficacy gains. They are seeing better candidate slates in their organization. They're seeing higher retention numbers in their organization. I challenged individuals. One of the questions that we asked is, are you leveraging AI to create personalized learning and development plans? Not many had done that yet. And so it showed us that, yes, when you do deploy it and you're thoughtful about how you're deploying it, oftentimes you're going to see some efficiency, some efficacy. You'll see the ROI rather quickly. But it also showed us in the report that, wow, there's some really germane use cases that are there that we have yet to explore and we should be exploring.
Yeah, the report really covered the sort of the high level thought leadership type topics, like the concerns, the trepidation, the opportunities, but you also really pulled it together with business outcomes. So everything that you just mentioned, I think there's it's yes, it's a conversation about bias and how that impacts DEI and other initiatives, core hiring and HR, but it also really does tie to the business outcome, which I think we've got to do both. One of the things that surprised me in a good way. There was a stat that you had. Well, let me, the background is, every day lately, it seems like there's a new announcement, McDonald's pulling back from DEI, different big brands, and the media focuses on that. And it creates a feeling like everybody's pulling back. But you had a stat in your report that 66% are saying that they're increasing or maintaining or increasing, I think, their investments in DEI programs, and that was encouraging to me. But I have a question around this as well. So number one, that was great. But number two, how does the DEI community feel right now? Because it's a part of my world, and every time I see one of those, I just I gasp. It's sort of like, what are we doing here? And it's got to be disheartening for the practitioners who are focused on this.
Yeah, it really is. But what I will say to you is that despite what individuals are reading, it would be a fool's errand to think that diversity and inclusion are not important. It would actually be it would be negligent to take a position in your organization feeling as if such is not important. And one of the things that's always missing, I want you to go back and pull any of the headlines that you just sort of touched on: McDonald's, Tractor Supply, John Deere, any other organization, any of them. What you will not see in any of those stories is that the demonstrative pursuit of diversity and inclusion cost a business. You won't see that. You won't see that taking a position over the last 5 years, being very vocal about the support of D&I efforts, setting up programming, building centers of excellence and influence. You won't see in any of those reports that having done so cost the business in their bottom line. That's the first thing. But yes, people in the community, practitioners, consultants, those that are W-2 performing like CDOs and other, yeah, we're a bit disheartened. We're a bit frustrated that individuals have been able to hijack the narrative around D&I, conflating it with something that it is not. But what we will continue to do is we will continue to fight forward. We will continue to stand on our square and make sure that individuals really do understand the power of diversity and inclusion. Yeah. That when you do such the right way, it is connected to engagement, productivity, and positive retention. That's what it's connected to. And those are the ways that we've measured it in our consulting. Those are the ways that we've talked about it in our speaking. And those are the ways that we wrote about it in this particular report. That if in fact you are investing in an AI solution that you are bringing into your organization, you should have some roadmap, some metric for how to show that this solution has returned value to the organization. And when you make the decision based on learning and development, well, then have we seen an increase in learning and development or hours of usage or agenda of opportunity to learn? If we're making the AI investment because we want to be better about our philanthropic dollars, have we seen those dollars go to underserved organizations or geographies? Have we been able to call our data to determine that our investments have helped these organizations in this particular way, but that if we shift these investments, they'll be able to make this type of impact? What we know is that when we leverage AI in a very thoughtful manner, when we are really discerning about why we are making that investment, that oftentimes, more often than not, the decision to have made that investment pans out.
Yeah, I like that. But listening to you talk, I can't help but think maybe this topic of bias through AI and the concern for it is an opportunity for those CDOs and other practitioners in that space to
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac Extra Value Meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through October 29th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends October 29th, 2025.
To extend their purview, if you will, because who better to look at that or contribute to that? Because bias has been something you've been working on in that world for a long time. So is this an opportunity to sort of maybe change the narrative, tweak the narrative a little bit to focus on, because bias, while bias isn't always bad, right? There can be a productive bias. But it's generally one of those things. Nobody wants, unwanted bias in their processes and their systems. So is that how you see it? An opportunity for them?
So I'm going to do the best that I can to be succinct in this response. But I chose HR for a reason. They're central to the organization. I don't want them to be a cost center. I want them to be seen as a group of individual, a function that is providing value to the business. That they're not just administratively pushing paper and checking boxes, but that they are also sitting at the table helping us make decisions around ethical AI. What does it look like to have a solution inside of the organization that is technically proficient? What does it look like in the organization to have a solution that is really good for both our corporation, our entity, as well as society? We know that HR has some degree of input around ethical concerns and data privacy, data practices, transparency, regulatory compliance initiatives. And so when we wrote the report, we said to ourselves, what would it look like if an HR was at the table with maybe the chief diversity officer, perhaps the chief technology officer, a couple of the managers inside of the organization, certainly some of the employees, stakeholders, and maybe we have a couple of people from in the marketplace that we are serving, our clients at the table. We have a nice cadre of voices that are evaluating and scoping out what these solutions should be doing so that we show up as better businesses, so that we show up doing good rather than necessarily eroding our brand or not building on our brand cachet. And so I do believe that HR is an important component. They are an important ingredient in how we are advancing this conversation. And so I wrote it for HR as to get them, one, involved, and two, hopefully prepared to sit at the table.
Okay. Yeah, my feeling is when it comes to AI, the train's left the station. Like this is, and we're all on it. And I like to. What I've been telling folks is this change is going to either happen to you or it's going to come through you. So you can choose to wait and see what happens, and that may be painful, or you can take control. So in that, and when my thoughts have evolved to a place around bias where I feel, this is fairly simplified, but we've had an issue with bias all along. When we had spreadsheets and humans doing everything, when we had, when we first started automating, when we moved to the cloud, bias has always been an issue, and it's going to continue to be an issue now. So I think, when we have a system that if it's making decisions for us, we've got a whole other level of concern there, but we need to work on it is what we need to do. And I really think that one of the things that I liked about your report was it showed the business outcomes, it showed the upside, and it feels to me like we've got to get together on this and not debate whether there's bias or not, because...
Hey, it's Bob Pulver, host of You Podcast. Human-centric AI, AI-driven transformation, hiring for skills and potential, dynamic workforce ecosystems, responsible innovation. These are some of the themes my expert guests and I chat about, and we certainly geek out on the details. Nothing too technical. I hope you check it out.
We're already living in a world with bias. Bias is inherent in every process we build, in every system we build, because humans have built it. Does that resonate with you, or am I...
No, it absolutely does. It resonates. And listen, that's the reason why we chose purposefully the word reducing, not erasing bias. We chose reducing purposefully because we don't feel like we can erase bias. We absolutely bring it to the equation. That's one of the beautiful things. We talked about where the data came from in the very beginning. What we didn't mention is that we actually held 2 focus groups as well. And what people will read inside of the report is a very interesting exchange between 2 of my focus group participants. And in short, one of them said, well, I don't really like the word reducing because it infers that bias is there. And they went on to say some more stuff. And then there was another respondent that said, stop. Everybody's got bias. It is there. Let's call a thing, and let's deal with it. And then that person went on to say a little bit more. Point being, bias is inside of all of us. But I absolutely trust that the more we focus on how we are developing these solutions, the better these solutions will be. Let me give you an example. Plum shared a case study. They have a global financial services firm.
I'm glad you're going
Yes.
there.
They have a global financial services firm, 90,000 employees, 30 countries represented. The organization wanted to increase their representation in their pipeline. Just didn't feel like they were hiring the right individuals from a variety of communities. Felt like they continued to get the same type of result. And so they tapped Plum on the shoulder. Plum sat down, did some discovery and exploration with them, and decided that it was good for them to become partners, to work together. First thing that they did was they removed resumes from the scenario. Second thing that they did was instituted a small 20-25 minute assessment, which sits on their Plum platform. Of course, it includes AI. And what the organization experienced, George and listener, is an increase through all channels. They increase in activity, an increase in pipeline variety, an increase in representation, an increase in throughput for underrepresented and marginalized talent. What they also did was they moved from 12 academic institutions to more than 30.
Oh, wow.
As a result of using Plum's solution. And so what we know is that if in fact we are willing to challenge what we've always done, if we're willing to explore some different ways of doing it, if we're willing to reallocate dollars, resources, headcount, if we're willing to just shift some things around, I like to call it organizational redesign. If we're willing to do things a little bit differently, we can increase our D&I solution, efficacy, effort, progress, and all of the other things. We can do that if we're willing to explore. And so that's why when I hear the negative narrative and the hyperbolic position, it's frustrating, because I do know that the pursuit of diversity and inclusion, the pursuit of artificial intelligence, and the marriage of both of them is really good for the business.
Yeah. That case study really jumped out at me. I know Plum, and they've recently been talking about durable skills. So moving away from a lot of the traditional measures and moving into really the benefits of using an assessment, right? Looking at innovation, ability to learn, creativity, conflict resolution. Realizing now, based on what you said, they've moved, they were able to move away from the resume. If they're focusing on durable skills like that, that also opens up the aperture, right? And does that contribute to minimizing bias in outcome?
It does contribute. And going back to your original question, I'm not attempting to use AI and remove humans from the end of the process. I am looking at using AI in iterations through the process, but that the final decision rests with the human, because I also bring that nuance, that experience, that context, that layer. I bring that to the equation, and we can't discount that. What we use the AI for is to really open up, as you say, the aperture, to place us in ways of benefit that we may not have been able to experience before, whether it means rapidly going through data faster than a human can, or repeating an exercise that's really a low-level skill and not necessarily a good use of my time. I'm looking for AI to complement me showing up inside of the workplace. And my hope is that HR professionals, that they do the same, that when they deploy AI solutions, that we are able to avert Me Too movements, that we are able to avert conversations around pay inequity, that we are able to look at how is it that we are treating our employees, that stakeholder, in ways that get them engaged, keep them in a high production state, and staying with our organization.
Yeah. So, given the time that we have, I want to bring up another topic. What advice would you have? Let's say there's a HR leader in an organization looking at, if they're looking at anything right now, it's got AI. So let's just say they're looking at AI. What advice would you give them in thinking about that, evaluating AI? And you can pick a category if you want, or whatever the best example is.
I think maybe this is a good time to call out two of the disappointments in the report.
Okay.
So George, I was a little miffed or disappointed when I saw that the number of people sitting on the sideline was as high as it was.
Mm.
We didn't ask enough questions in the sense of why they were sitting on the sideline. We asked a few, but I say enough purposefully. I believe that part of the reason why some of them were sitting on the sideline, we didn't justify this, but I believe that part of them were there because they're waiting to see if previous investments return the ROI that they're looking for. So I was still a little disappointed that so many people were sitting on the sideline. The second disappointment for me was that in a number of the organizations that went out to explore new solutions, they didn't have a question in there around that product or that solution complementing their internal D&I effort.
Mm.
It may have indirectly did it. It may have done it through, osmosis type thing. But I wanted to know that when organizations put their exploratory team together to go out and look at hiring software or resume parsing, screening software or candidate communication software or programmatic job advertising software or benefit allocation software, learning and development software, I can keep going down the list. I wanted to know that the team that is doing the discovery had some specific questions around, does this solution complement or how might the solution aid us, or can the solution advance our desire, fill in the blank, as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Because I wanted those organizations to be able to go back to their board of directors. I wanted them to be able to go back to their senior leadership team and other executives. I wanted them to really be able to go back to HR and others and say, not only will the solution do this, but it would also help us as it relates to D&I. So those were the two bigger disappointments for me. And so what I would say to those that are listening, will be future doing exploration around investments and discovery. Ask some very specific questions, because despite this current state, people still want to join organizations that care about the advancement, the inclusion, the belonging, the equity, equality of all of the employees. People still care, and we want to make sure that we are making decisions that support that care and concern.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if the HR leaders, if the buyers really understand. Let's say I'm out looking for a recruiting system, or I'm looking for a learning system. If they realize how much AI is in there today or is coming their way, like tomorrow, because I've seen a lot of roadmaps between, from the point where we had the big HR tech event in October to now, the beginning of the year, and everybody's roadmap is just filled with AI. It's all about AI. It's all about delivering on this market expectation. So that makes me wonder, because I one of the things that, like those stats that you had about folks sitting on the sideline, were a little counterintuitive to the feeling that we have in the market about all of the pace around the adoption of AI. And I wonder if in the frame of, bias and D&I, if that changes their perception, and if they even realize that they're looking at AI in their core systems, or how much of it is there. Do you think that there's a disconnect on that?
I do believe that there's a disconnect. Again, when I think about some of the stalwarts in our space, you have folks that are often quoting Josh Bersin. Mm-hmm. And I remember 2 years ago, it may have been last year, my years are kind of running together, but diversity and inclusion was still one of the biggest disconnects, impediments for HR professionals. I'm looking at Gardner's top 5 HR concerns for the last 3 years. Technology was right there at number 2 or number 3, and then the acumen of their managerial team was also in the top 5. So what I know is that our report, it mirrors what other titans in the space are finding in their work or suggesting in their writings. The sample size that we collected, we're tracking right along with them. And so what does that tell me? That tells me that all of us must do a better job of making sure that we are not just highlighting the shininess of the objects that we have, or that we are not just drawn towards the shiniest or the loudest in the room, but that we are very discerning about what it is that we want these solutions to do for us. Don't just invest because, invest with some degree of purpose. Invest with a calibration team in place. Invest in a solution knowing how you're going to evaluate whether or not that solution is returning a result. Invest knowing that you have the ability to recalibrate or reposition the solution if it doesn't do what you originally thought that it was going to do. I want people to be prudent about making their investment, not sitting on the sideline, but being very descriptive and methodical about how we are going out and evaluating these solutions. Because as you said, I don't want people to get hit by the train. I want them to enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So in the last few minutes, I ask everybody this question, and you can take it from whatever angle you'd like, any perspective, whether it's the DE&I lens, whether it's the market at large, whether it's technology, what have you. What are your expectations for the market in 2025?
Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see us focus more on human decision making in the use and presence of AI. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see more human decision making. I'd also like to have us focused on meaningful outcomes, not just pie in the sky, not just fun, frilly stuff, but I want us focused on meaningful outcomes. I'd also, if I could pick a third thing, George, I'd like to see us calm the fears of robots taking over. Listen, they're here, they're coming. These leaders are making these decisions. They're not necessarily consulting with the employee base around it. So let's calm our concern around robots, and let's find ways to make sure that we are one of the cashiers inside of the grocery store, that we are one of the bank tellers inside of the bank, that we are one of the real people inside of the warehouse, that we are one of the accountants that are still actually doing the books, that we are one of the speakers that are being really tasked with speaking and delivering a message. What I'm suggesting is that I want us to focus more on how do we show up and deliver creativity, deliver value, deliver result. How do we do that? And let's spend a little less time worrying about whether or not something is going to replace us.
Good. That's a great point. I would encourage everybody to grab this report. It gave me a lot to think about, and I know they can grab that at plum.io. We'll get the QR code. Where can folks go to learn and hear more from you, Torin?
Yeah, again, I want to just thank you for the time and for trusting my voice with your platform. You have an amazing audience. You, my friend, have always been a shining North Star in my orbit. And so thank you for spending some time with me. I'm across all of social media at Torin Ellis. Website is torinellis.com. I am really active on LinkedIn and a little bit active on Instagram, but you can find me across all of social media at Torin Ellis.
All right. Well, Torin, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Maybe we're the two opposite poles because you're a shining star for me as well. I really do, follow your lead on these topics. So thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for watching, listening, wherever you are, if you're out on the Work Defined podcast network or YouTube or at oneworktech.com. And Torin, thanks again. Until next time.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Work Tech Podcast. Visit us at oneworktech.com and find out why Work Tech is considered the most trusted source of market intelligence and strategic advice for work tech. Subscribe to the WorkTech YouTube channel for video episodes and exclusive content. And be sure to check out the entire Work Defined podcast network at WRKDefined.com for more podcasts on the world of work.
Every minute your finance team spends wrestling with data is a minute lost. Insight Software's AI-powered insights instantly move you from complexity to clarity. Automated analysis, real-time reporting, strategic recommendations, all at your fingertips. Transform how your finance team works and watch your business grow. Stop wasting time. Start making smarter decisions. Learn more at insightsoftware.com/AI.